Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us for tonight's virtual First Wednesday. Obviously, those of you who have kept up with the gallery over the years know that our first Wednesdays are typically when we have our opening receptions, typically where we'd have a few hundred people coming and joining us at the gallery for the newest in typically local contemporary art. Obviously with COVID, we're not able to do that, so this is the second best thing. We are thrilled to have you with us. In a few minutes, we're going to walk through the gallery and share with you the latest from 3 different artists who've been a part of the gallery for a long time. Kathleen Lemoine, Brian Kelly, and John Harlan Norris. We'll start here in this room with Kathleen Lemoine and make our way through the gallery. All 3 artists are with us, so you'll hear directly from them, straight from their mouths about the techniques, the inspirations, the processes behind the artwork that's in the gallery all this month. As always, the gallery is free and open to the public. You can come through anytime through February 25th, every day but Monday between noon and 6. The gallery is free and open to the public here for you to enjoy, so please come by and see us. In addition, knowing that many may not feel comfortable joining us here in person, you can see the entire show online. Every work you're going to see tonight is already up on our website. You can go check them out there, and you can actually purchase from the website as well if there's a piece that speaks to you. BatonRougeGallery.org/current, and you can find every single piece that you'll see in the gallery tonight. Before we take a walk through the gallery, though, I want to say a quick word of thank you to all of our members and all of our donors. You may know that this night, or that today, I should say, is the last day of our membership campaign. I want to say a huge thank you to Francesca Vega, our development director, for spearheading our membership campaign this year. It has been an incredible success. We've seen over 50% growth in our membership. So thank you so much to everybody who helped reach that goal, who helped support the gallery, especially in these unpredictable and strange times. We really appreciate your support and all that you make possible here at the gallery. So thank you to all of our members. It was such a successful campaign that we're going to actually hand out 2 different prizes tonight. Many of you know that we were planning to hand off a prize, which was a Michaeline Walsh popsicle. We'll hand that out in just a second, or award that in just a second. But we've also got a second prize set this night, which is a Jamie Baldridge book called Almost Fiction, an incredible book. If anybody's interested, hardcover, incredible book featuring full-color reproductions of his work, as well as original text, and a Baton Rouge Gallery t-shirt that will go to the winner as well. And the winner of this prize package is Kathy Seven.
Woo.
Forgive me if I am pronouncing the name incorrectly, but Kathy Seven, congratulations, and thank you for supporting the gallery. We really appreciate it. And now, our big winner of the Michaeline Walsh popsicle is Baton Rouge Gallery member Colleen Eames. Congratulations, Colleen. These names were just drawn just before we went live with the broadcast. So congratulations, Colleen. Thank you again to everybody who became a member over the course of the campaign, which started at the beginning of December. We really appreciate it. We can't tell you how much we thank you for your support. So thank you for everything. If you're not already a member and you're interested in doing so, you can absolutely still go to BatonRougeGallery.org/join and become a member. There are memberships starting at $2.50 a month. You can start a monthly membership or give on an annual basis. So thank you again to all of our members. Thank you to Francesca Vega and the entire staff here at the gallery who helped make this campaign such a huge success. So with that, I'll say thank you again for joining us tonight for the first Wednesday for our February 21 exhibition. And here in just a second, we're going to start by bringing in Kathleen Lemoine and talk about her latest exhibition here at the gallery called The Shape of Things to Come.
Oh, hi, Jason. Boy, this is
Kathleen.
Cool. This is cool.
It's different, right?
Yes. Happy to be here. I'm just going to start in general, speaking about my process. And I was very surprised when I hung this show at having the most positive, powerful feeling hanging it. And that was a surprise to me. I think when I first heard about the February spot and what a difficult time we've been in, I thought, Oh my gosh, I thought a little futility, I'm going to be showing art during this difficult time. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to make the best show I can make, the best art I can make, and hang this show at Baton Rouge Gallery and be joyful and grateful. And that's exactly what's happened. I felt like has been just such a beautiful body of work, and I'm very happy to share it at Baton Rouge Gallery. So I'm going to say a little bit about my process. And first of all, there's the idea. I start with a compelling idea, an idea that compels me uh, to maybe want to begin a body of work. So a shape kind of takes hold, and I just sort of let it marinate. And then at a certain point, I head to the sketchbook. And this is what I do. I begin to sketch and sketch and sketch to see if the idea holds up, if it has the energy that to bring you through making a piece, and that piece become part of a series. So it's the idea, a compelling idea, then to the sketchbook, and then sometimes the ideas don't hold up, but if they do, I begin to think of substrate. Does this piece want to be a shaped image, a shape, or freeform shape, or should I put it on a traditional painting? Use a traditional substrate. So that comes next, and some ideas make it, some ideas don't, but I'm on to the next step, which is to actually sketch the work in. And after that, I began to think of color. Now, color is, there's an energy about color that in the best of circumstances, I wanted to animate the shape. I wanted to bring the shape to life. So I start off with an idea of, I pick a color. And sometimes that color holds, sometimes it doesn't. Then I might start with a certain shade. And, that may be fine, but it may need to have more heft, more meat, I think of it. To think of a color as having more, just being weightier. So that's what happens. And I like to work, generally, I like 3 colors in a work. I like those first 2, and then what's the color that will serve, these 2 colors that I've picked. So we're through with color, and I'll talk about working in series. I very often work in a series, and then out of that series, while I'm working, other ideas, it'll trigger other ideas. So a lot of times I'm working on multiple series at a time, which is exciting. That spark, that's what keeps us in the studio. These ideas, the energy and the joy of ideas. And during this time, a lot of us have had more studio time than before. So it's been a refuge. The studio's been a refuge and a joy. And I think that other artists have mentioned that too, that while this has been a time of great difficulty, it has also been a time of new experimenting and just an opportunity to explore ideas that maybe we were so busy that we couldn't explore before. So color, okay, a compelling idea, a shape, a color, and working in series. And then at the end, you might be surprised that the original ideas, some stayed, and then some morphed and changed into other ideas, which is what you hope for. So I think that that's my prepared comments. And if you have any comments or questions, I do want to say that I am thrilled to be showing with the two artists I'm showing with. I've shown with Brian Kelly before. I love his work. I've admired John Norris's work. I haven't shown with him before. But sometimes the stars align and the show is just what you hope for. And that's what this one was for me. So I'm grateful. I'm thankful. And if you have any questions, Jason, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, one question I had for you that I think a lot of people might be interested to know more about is the process of titling these works.
Oh, that's...
Not to put you on the spot or anything, knowing that we've had many phone conversations about that very topic.
This was even fun. They were even fun to title. I thought about the pieces that I tilted and stood on end and began to think of balance. In fact, I think I was talking to you about that, what's going on here? And I came to On Balance for one of the titles of the pieces we're looking at, these tilted pieces, these diamonds. And I think I went to Google and I looked up On Balance. And from there, I kind of riffed on Balance and saw that there were other things that flowed out of the phrase On Balance. And that was how I titled, I think, 5 of the pieces. So titles can be a job, they can be a labor, but in this case, they were fun. And then when I got to the ones we're looking at now, I thought of the Greek goddesses. So 5 of those have the titles of the Greek goddesses, and I'm not sure where that came from, but it pleased me, so I did it. Mm-hmm. We have some fun in the studio. So anything else that you're wondering? These are shaped pieces, and that's a big interest of mine now. I'm very excited about that. And then I don't know if it's realized, but these shapes, I am actually transferring to these traditional substrates. I'm leaving a white border, which is important to the piece, and I am bringing that shape and then making a whole new piece out of it. So everything worked hand in glove.
Kathleen, I think somebody was asking what inspires you, what inspires your creations?
In the last few years, it is about a shape that has some resonance for me. So it can't just be a shape that's neat looking or design wise. It's, for some reason, this shape resonates. And that's it. What inspires me are the shapes from nature, maybe with the man-made interruptions. So out of the corner of your eye, you might see a bit of nature with a bisected by something that's man-made, a railing or a wall. I think that's it. It is both of those things that where I walk around every day with nature and man-made objects that interrupt nature, and a shape that comes out of that excites me. So that's wonderful. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, Kathleen, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And thank you so much for sharing your work at the gallery this month.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to make our way into the hallway gallery, and we'll hear from John Harlan Norris, another Baton Rouge Gallery artist member, who is actually coming to us tonight from Kentucky. Hey, John.
Hey,
How are
y'all.
you?
I'm good. And that was great to hear Kathleen, and I'm really happy to be showing with her and Brian, and I just loved her beautiful work. Um, so maybe I'll just tell you a little bit about this show in general and then talk about a few specific pieces. Um, I had talked with you, Jason, about originally hopefully coming down and bringing some big paintings because I hadn't done that in a while. But then, of course, COVID hit and changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I tried to think, what could I do that being at a distance that, would make sense, but also be a meaningful show. And I thought it might be interesting to bring together a number of smaller works that I've done in the past 5 years or so, and just have a collection of those to let people see how I sort of think about smaller works, which I feel is maybe a little bit atypical. I feel like small works are oftentimes, particularly for a painter, they're associated with sort of preparation and planning, trying out a new subject, trying out a composition before you then go sort of large scale with it. But for me, I felt like small works have always been, I don't know, I've just had a different approach where oftentimes they'll come near the end of a body of work, and I'll take a number of subjects that I've been working with in larger paintings and just sort of put them through a different filter or reinterpret them. So maybe what I'll do, excuse me, is just talk about a couple in this hallway. I think the one you're looking at right now, I have a number of works on paper in the show. And for me, oftentimes works on paper are associated with some sort of print medium or technique. I'll begin with a subject that has actually already been a painting, and then I will make a print or work in collaboration with a printer to make a print, and then oftentimes sort of paint on top of it to kind of reinterpret a subject. So that print you just saw, that's actually a risograph that I then painted on top of with acrylic. And for me, the works on paper are just an opportunity to play a bit in a medium that is sort of something that I'm familiar with, but a beginner with. Print is something I really hugely admire and respect, and I know that I'm not a printmaker, but I like to sort of dip my toes in when I can and sort of explore that realm. The other paintings you see in this hall, yeah, that one and a few other ones, these are small paintings, which I call day counters. And I made these during COVID. At the beginning of the pandemic and throughout it, there were periods where I just had a really hard time feeling motivated and making work in the studio. And as a sort of practice to just kind of get myself going, I stretched a bunch of these really small canvases. These are 16 by 12 inches. And I just started making a few marks each day without any real plan or sense of what I was going to try to do with them. And, I was also, I teach, I was Zoom teaching, I was sort of consumed with that. But I thought if I can just make at least a couple marks each day in the studio, then I'm at least doing something, and I'm at least keeping my creative practice alive, even if just a little bit. So eventually these started to become these sort of non-objective paintings. And I thought, I'm a portrait painter. I want to in some way bring these together and make these portraits. So I would then create these silhouettes with a flat background behind them, to where these paintings, which were really just a way of tracing time and maintaining my practice during COVID, would then sort of stand as portraits and almost as a portrait of a period of time, which has been so sort of, I don't know, amorphous and difficult and bizarre for all of us. So I'm not an abstract painter typically. These are pretty different for me. But it's been an interesting new avenue to kind of explore during this time in which we're exploring a lot of new things, for better or worse. And maybe we can go into the next room and look at a couple more. So here, mostly what you see, this is a little bit, a group of paintings where I made digital inkjet prints. These are called transactors, this group. And what I did is I was interested in the idea of kind of like working and interacting at a distance. Now, these were made before COVID. These were made in 2015, but I feel like this is a subject where we're very much now sort of all engaged with this sort of distance interaction. But I thought at that time, this was becoming an increasing sort of way of relating to people, you know, ordering things on Amazon, beginning to use Skype and all that. And I wanted to make a series where the process sort of mirrored that idea of remoteness. So what I did is I would create these images that had been based on previous portraits in Photoshop. I would have them printed out with a digital inkjet on canvas, and then I would paint on top of those using airbrush. And if you think about it, airbrush is also a medium at which you're working at a distance. You're not actually touching the canvas, you're sort of at a remove. So, you know, at various stages in the process, I was sort of working with that idea of distance. And again, it was also just an opportunity to explore different media, digital printing, airbrush, and that's often what I do with the small works. I use them as an avenue to sort of go into different territories. And that's what some of these here that you're seeing, that's what they're getting at. That's another one on paper. Then I think maybe the last group, which may be a little bit further down on the wall. Yeah, this is a group called Propositions. And this is, again, another group of small paintings. These are more traditional in terms of medium. These are mainly oil. And I was interested with this group of paintings in how could I make forms that felt like portraits with the most essential elements possible. I wanted to make them just very minimal and use as few objects as possible. Typically, my larger paintings have lots and lots of objects that sort of form these big sort of mask or totem-like forms. But what I did here is I took a few sort of abstract cylindrical objects that I sort of found one day, and I just tried to make these kind of abstract, vaguely figurative portrait-like forms. And it was just an exercise in being minimal, which is usually kind of the opposite of my impulse as an artist, which tends to be a little bit more maximal. I'm always adding lots of stuff and building lots of layers. I just wanted to sort of go against the grain of my usual tendencies and just try to see, could I make something that had a relationship with my portraits I typically make using the smallest amount of sort of objects and subject matter possible. And again, this is an experiment, that's sort of how I think about my small works, not as necessarily preparation for something bigger, but just as a place for me to go down alternative routes and paths and think about different ways of approaching the work. Sometimes those end up manifesting themselves in larger works down the road, and sometimes it's just a path that meets a dead end, but it's always a fun time for me when I'm concentrating on small works. So yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions yeah. And I just want to say also thank you to Jason and John and BRG just for, you know, persevering and putting these shows on during such a difficult time. It's a real challenge, and clearly from what I'm seeing, you all have done a great job. So thank you all.
Thank you. We're fortunate to be able to do it. Again,
absolutely.
It's because of members and donors and supporters that make it possible for us to do that. And obviously the work of you guys as artist members. So thank you for all you do. John, one thing that many people who might be watching might not be aware of, and something that I just shared with our staff that they weren't aware of. We're right on the heels of our Surreal Salon show, our 13th. And one of the things that maybe an interesting little bit of trivia is that your band, Harlan, was actually the musical entertainment at the very first Surreal Salon.
That's right. Yeah,
But your relationship with the gallery goes back a ways.
Right. I hadn't thought of that in a while. Yeah, I went to LSU. I guess I graduated from grad school at LSU in 2005, and I hung around for a couple of years. I had a band called Harlan. We played around in Baton Rouge and New Orleans quite a bit. And then I moved to Arkansas, and I think it was right after that when Harlan actually came down and played. So that was a very fun night. And you've kept the Surreal Salon. It's just grown and turned into this great show and event. So I was happy to be there at the inaugural for that one.
I remember it was a treat for us for you to say that Harlan would play. So
cool
for being a part of it back then.
Yeah, that's a good memory.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it. And thank you for sharing your work with us. Again, anybody who would like the opportunity to come and see the show, you're more than welcome to come by any day but Monday between noon and 6. The gallery is always free and open to the public. And you can actually see every single piece you're seeing on the feed here tonight online at batonrougegallery.org/current. All right, our final artist for the night, we're going to hear from Brian Kelly, longtime Baton Rouge Gallery artist member and printmaker. We'll bring Brian on. Hey, Brian, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, we're just going to walk through the gallery if you want to tell everybody about your work and about the images they're seeing.
Sure. Well, as Jason said, I'm a printmaker, and my work really is autobiographical. It's always been that way, even going back to undergraduate school. I've had a lot of experiences, and as a kid and as an adult, and all of those things have sort of fed into sort of how I see the world and how I perceive things around me, and how I perceive my work. The work in this show is some could say it's visually very different than maybe what they're accustomed to seeing me do, but the process is still the same. I'm very interested in claustrophobic spaces. I'm very interested in spaces that force the viewer to move around or constrict the viewer, taking away their ability to move around an image. And a lot of those things are connected to, things that I've dealt with personally growing up. And they're things that certainly drive sort of the formalism of the work. The work that's in the show currently is generated in I would say, a printmaker's process, meaning I've taken a bunch of woodcuts, and I decided to cut them all up into pieces, and started to reconstruct worlds in which I created as woodcuts into new worlds. Location and geography is also very important to my work, and it's been that way again for a very long time. I do a lot of traveling. I do a lot of traveling for self-renewal. In the places that I go, I tend to go to often, and I view those places as places of spiritual enrichment. I view them as powerful places. I view them as places in which I can seek refuge sometimes. And my previous work, if you've seen it, it ranges from very surreal looking prints that involve animals and images of the Louisiana landscape, to more abstract expressionist landscapes, to things that look like this. And I move through that fluidly. I don't think of myself as a certain visual artist. I think of the ideas that interest me and the ideas that I connect to. And I think about the process in which I use to recreate those spaces that I have attachment to, or I find, sort of spiritually enriching for me, renewal, places of renewal. The prints in this show I call totems, and I've always liked totems. I've always been attracted to totems. And, these images came from an experience that I had when I was very young, when I was in first grade, where I had to go see a psychiatrist. And it happened after my father took me to see Jaws. And I was so traumatized after seeing the movie Jaws that I couldn't function. So I had to go see a psychiatrist, sort of walk through those things. And they would give me all these kinds of tests. And the reason this sort of popped up in my head was because, teaching, I teach at UL Lafayette, and last spring, when COVID hit, I was teaching online for the first time. And I was really disconnected from the students, and I'd never had that experience before. And I was trying to process that. And I started thinking about a lot of kinds of experiences I had as a child, and going through difficulties and working with sort of doctors, working through kind of understanding how I was perceiving and understanding the world around me. And I used to have to do these sort of ink blotch tests where he would show me a sort of an ink blotch. We're all familiar with that. And he would say, what do you see? And I would go into these real long, elaborate kinds of stories and things that I would see. And I stopped thinking about those for a long time until, about 2 months ago, when they sort of popped up in my head. And I started to look at a series of woodcuts that I had printed a number of years ago. And I started put one next to the other, and I started seeing a dialogue between the two. So I decided to start cutting them up and have a different kind of dialogue with them, and see if I could resonate those images in a very different way while referencing places, geographical places that, I feel really connected to. And this is also on the heels of, my wife and I ski, and I spent some time out in Wyoming in a couple places that I'm really connected to. And we were thinking about how our lives here sort of mirror or don't mirror our experiences at other places. And, so those things were kind of feeding into how I was, sort of looking at these woodcuts and cutting them up and sort of repiecing them together. And so these sort of totems started to sort of evolve. And again, pictorially, they're very different. If you've seen my work before, but I don't see them as very different. I see the mark making very similar. I see the obsessiveness in the mark making very similar to a lot of work that I make. The attention to cleanliness and craftsmanship is still there. The sort of oppressive, sort of overwhelming feeling in which the space is put together. That's all sort of a conduit that moves through the work, the old work and this current work. These are also things I call mock-ups. These are woodcuts all cut together, obviously, and glued, and then they're scanned in, and these are printed as archival pigment prints. But these are mock-ups in the sense that these will be cleaned up, and then I'm going to bring these into woodcuts. So these are going to be laser cut into wood, and then they'll be moved into other prints. My work sort of works that way. I don't work in bodies. I work sort of in a continuous mode where the work evolves and changes. And I allow it to do that. I don't control it that way. I work on a lot of things at once. And, I move into sort of certain pictorial worlds, and I'll live in those worlds and produce work that's reflective of those worlds for a period of time. And it will naturally shift to something else. So, I could work on images like this. I could work on things like this for 5 years or 2 months. I really don't control it that way. I sort of come in the studio and I work, and the work sort of pulls me in a direction. So, and sometimes I pull it, but mostly the work pulls me, and it's sort of a conversation that's sort of very organic. And if you look at the pieces, and I don't know, I can't pull up the titles for each of these, but each one is specific to, again, a place where I find refuge, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Jackson Hole, or it's in Oregon or Washington State, or even in the Atchafalaya Basin. I see and feel those two divergent sort of worlds, and as kind of very similar. So I see the mountains of the mountains in British Columbia is very similar to the swamps of the Atchafalaya Basin, although different elevations, and certainly different pictorial worlds, I still view them as very similar in terms of how they affect me.
Okay. Brian, thank you for always being so giving when you do an artist talk. I know you've spoken before about how your OCD or history with OCD plays into your work as a printmaker, and so thank you for sharing all of that. We appreciate it.
Well, I think it's not hard to do that, but I think it's important. I think work for me has to be personal. It has to be something that I'm connected with. The world that I exist in has to feed it. I have to be connected to it and understand it in a certain way. I have to relate to it at a personal level, and that's the only way I know how to do it. And it's always been a source of inspiration and a source of fuel for the work. And I think it's important to be honest about those things. And as a teacher, I'm involved in that on a daily basis, guiding students through those processes and finding their voice. And I think that, for me, it's always been one of those things that's always been there. Times in which I didn't, I had artist block and I didn't know what to do. I always had something to fall back to, some sort of experience to spark something. And I think that's real important. All artists have their own sort of ways of finding inspiration and finding fuel. But that's always been mine. And I think for me, that sort of personal, honest approach is really, really important. And I make a lot of work. Some of it's good and some of it's pretty bad, but in the process, for me, it doesn't matter. It's about creating at a level in which I feel the work is sort of an honest reflection of my emotional state.
Understood. Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. And again, if you would like to come by the gallery at any point this month, please come by and see us. We have this exhibition up until the 25th. And if you want to see it again and hear from the artist again, join us on Instagram. We're about to start there at 7:30. We'll walk through the gallery one more time and hear from all of the artists again. Again, through the 25th, come and see us. Thank you again to all of our members who helped close out our membership drive this year with a huge success. We can't thank you enough for supporting the gallery. And we hope to see you at the gallery real soon. Thank you and have a good night. Happy First Wednesday.